Rosey, here. Yes, sit. Yes, look. Yes, down. Yes, good girl. Good job. Rosey, touch. Yes, good job, Rosey. Good girl. All right, this video is going over recall, and recall just means having Rosey come when she is called. And this is what I consider to be the most important skill for any dog to have in terms of safety. So we always put a very strong emphasis on this throughout the Board and Train program. And there are actually two different commands that we use for recall. So the first one is here, and that's where she's just gonna come right in front of us, very self-explanatory. Rosey, here. Yes, sit. Yes, good girl, look, yes. And then the second one is touch. Rosey, touch. Yes, good girl. And that's where she's just gonna tap her nose against our two fingers. And there is a separate video on touch and look, which is what I consider to be the sister command to touch. It's another way to get her full attention and focus back on you. So please watch that video as well. That one is a generic video using our model pup Goldie. But Goldie is a golden retriever, and she is very similar to Rosey, so all the same information applies. So make sure you watch that one for sure. But anyway, touch, again, two fingers out, yes. And then it can be used for things other than recall, but when a puppy is distracted, they do tend to respond a bit better to touch than here. And that can just be attributed to the fact that it is so specific, and it's also more engaging and fun for them because they're making that physical contact with us. It's also the very first thing we teach typically at puppy prep because it gives us that way to get their attention and focus back on us, and it gives us a way to recall them. The way we teach it too is very motivating and easy for them. So basically how we teach it is we take treats, we fold them up within our three fingers and hold the other two out. So that's why we don't use a palm. It's just easier to hold the treats this way and then have the two fingers out. Touch. Yes. And then in the beginning, we're releasing treats every time. Obviously, now we are not releasing treats every time. I would say we're doing it every 5 to 10 times. Is she getting a reward just for doing touch? Typically, we're stacking other commands on top of it. So she might get it at the end of a series of commands and get it every third series or something like that. But she does not need a treat every single time for touch. But when she first is settling in at home, I would recommend using treats more often. But anyway, back to recall. So super important. We want to make sure that you are reinforcing this as much as you can at home. And so the way we want you to do that first is just with some random recall. So a few times a day, try to set a goal of at least 5. You're going to randomly recall her over. So a few times a day, you'll say, Rosey, here. Yes, sit. Yes, good girl. Look. Yes, down. Yes, good job, Rosey. Rosey, place. Yes, sit. Yes, down. Good girl. And we'll stack other commands on top. So that's really, really important too. So whether you recall her with here or a touch, you are going to make sure you stack other commands right after it. So you're going to mark yes for the recall and then move forward with other commands. And there are a few different reasons this is so important. But the number one reason is because a lot of times, even if a dog has really reliable recall, if we're not in the practice of making them stay focused after they get to us, they can start to see it more like checking a box, which could lead to some serious safety hazards. For example, if she were to ever get loose, if we were to call her over for here and she did it, but we couldn't grab her in time and she's back to darting off, we didn't solve the problem. Same if she's in your backyard, if it's enclosed, and she happens to see something that might be hazardous. Maybe you think you spotted a snake in the backyard and you're trying to recall her over. If she sees it, like checking a box, she's gonna go right back. So we gotta make sure that she is super motivated to come to us, but then also that she knows once we recall her over, she's gotta stay locked in and focused. Okay, break. Sit. Yes, look, yes, good job. Good girl. Good job, Rosey. And just to kind of go off on a tangent a little bit with motivating her, the other big thing is just kind of what I said with potty training is making sure that she is not anticipating the routine to the extent that she's no longer motivated to come when she's called. That's another big thing with the random recall is we want to make sure that it's at random points of the day and that we're not just using it when it's practical, because when it's practical, it's usually in transitions, and sometimes those transitions are not as much fun. As much as she loves her crate, it's not as exciting to be in her crate while you guys go to work or take the kids to school. as it is to play outside and sniff around, especially if it's, first thing in the morning and she needs to be created for a bit while you get the kids to school. It's not going to be the most exciting thing for her. It is completely fine. She's good to do it. But we want to make sure that we're also doing random recall. So she's excited to come to us, not just thinking, oh, well, I know as soon as I, recall back to them, I'm going to have to go inside. So practice randomly, give her treats, give her kibble for doing it, and she will stay nice and motivated. So the second reason I want you to always stack commands on top is it's just extra practice with the other commands. Instead of taking 10 seconds to just do touch or hear, you might as well make it 20 or 30 seconds and practice the rest of her commands. If you don't use it, she will lose it. So the more practice you can fit in, the better off she will be in the long run as far as sustaining the program and the training. So those are the big reasons we want you to stack other commands on top. And then the other way we'd like you to reinforce her recall work is with the recall game. And this involves at least 2 people, but if you can get more involved, that's even better. But at least 2, and what you'll do is you just spread yourselves out. So say I'm standing here and someone else is standing on the ivy wall. So say me and Jenna are playing the recall game. We'll just take turns calling Rosey back and forth. And we can either do this like a game of ping pong. You can see in her grad notebook, the ping pong game. So that's where she'd go just right back and forth or between all 4 people or whatever the case may be. Or we can do it more random. So you can just be hanging out, talking, and just randomly take turns calling her over. Now there are a couple of rules to this game, and these are rules for across the board in her training. Rule number 1 is make sure only one person at a time is ever giving her command. And number 2, whoever gives her the command, that is the one to mark yes. So if I recalled her over, Jenna wouldn't say yes. That would be my job. So just keep that in mind. And those are rules for across the board for all of her training. So you can also do what I call the lazy version of this game. And that's where, it's football Sunday maybe. And if you're like me and don't really care about football, but maybe someone else in the household does, you can work with her while the game is on, practice holding place, practice some commands, whatever it may be. And then once the commercial break is on, everyone in the family will be given some treats or already have treats in their pocket or a kibble, and you'll just randomly take turns calling her over. So you can do this with any show, obviously, with ad breaks and stuff, but this is my favorite thing to do during football season. Is practice and do the recall game. We'll usually have another couple over to watch a game, and then pups have a really good opportunity to practice listening to multiple people. So get your friends involved too. If you host people who would not want to help out with Rosie's training, she is so cute and so sweet and just wants love. So I'm sure you'd have very willing participants if you have any guests over. So that is the recall game. So practice that. And then the third thing you're going to do is with distractions. Start out with something she likes but doesn't love. And what we're going to do is we're just going to toss that toy to the side. Rosey, here. Here, Rosey. Yes, good girl, sit. Yes, good job. And the whole goal is to have her recall back, ignore the toy that she's investigating. If you have more space, you can call her before she even gets to the toy. If she does grab the toy, do not worry. It's totally fine. We're just going to work at that same value of distraction. But if she brings you the toy, that's totally cool. As long as she still recalls back to you, just tell her drop it and then toss the toy again and she can go get it again. You can practice over and over again with that item, get her really good at it, and then move on. So the goal is when she is doing really well with a toy she likes but doesn't love, we'll move up the value of the distraction. We'll go for one of her favorite toys, and then we'll use a new toy because it has novelty. And then we will escalate it to a piece of kibble but reward her with a training treat, and so on and so forth. Biggest thing here is just making sure that as you increase the value of the distraction, you are also increasing the value of your reward. Your reward must be of higher value than whatever it is you are using as the distraction, and that is absolutely essential. So keep that in mind. If you have multiple people practicing with her at a time, you can get really creative with the distraction work. Just having someone in the room sometimes can be a distraction. If the kids are playing in the room and you're practicing recall with her, that's really big. Keep in mind in the very beginning, that is the kind of distraction we want you working with, and we're going to build up from there. But once she's getting good at that, then the other person can be more exciting. They could sing a song, they could dance, they could, do jumping jacks, whatever. As long as they're not saying her name or a command, that's not fair. That's too confusing. As long as they're not doing those things, they can do whatever they want to distract her. They can squeak a toy, and then move up from there. If you have 3 people, 2 people can be distractions. 1 person can do random recall, or 2 people can play the recall game. 1 person can be the distraction, so on and so forth. You totally get it. All right. That is recall. Please let me know if you have any questions. Practice as much as you can. And now I do like to go into a safety spiel here really quick. Basically, what I like to just remind everyone is that we do not do off-leash training here. Rosey has been in my yard. She's been in Jenna's yard. Big-ish yards, enclosed though, and fully puppy-proofed. So she's had practice with recall at a distance. She's had practice with recall with distractions. However, she has not had the experience of being off leash, and that is because we are strictly positive reinforcement only, meaning we don't use any corrective tools. So off leash programs do utilize a shock collar. I used to say, I don't, most of them, I'm pretty sure all of them. I've never heard of an off leash program that doesn't utilize a shock collar. And that's for good reason. It gives you a way to communicate at a distance. So with that being said, it's really, really important that we always have her on a leash. Practice recall as much as you can in open spaces. We want that to be super reliable. We want her to come back if she accidentally gets off leash. But in my opinion, it's not worth doing the off leash training and having an e-collar just because of the long-term studies on those. And then also, it's illegal to have your dog off leash in most areas of the city. And if you are hiking with your dog, there are so many variables that you may not be able to train and anticipate for, which is why, having a way to communicate at a distance is helpful, but it's still dangerous. So get a long line, keep her, you can give her more space, but always have her on leash. Put as many safety measures in place as you possibly can. We typically have air tags on the dogs. I don't on this collar right now, just because we're in the backyard. We're not like out and about, and my fence is like double fenced in. But she does have a QR code on. Basically, when you scan this, it brings up everyone at Puppy Prep, me, Abby, my fiance, Eliani, everyone's contact info is in this QR code. I love that because also if anyone ever scans it, it immediately sends me an email with the exact coordinates. So it just makes it a lot safer. I like that better than your regular standard tag. I also like that it does not dangle. Dangly tags can get ripped off. They can get snagged on something and cause the dog to choke. There's a lot of dangers involved. So I just like a nice flat one. I even have this one flipped in just because it's a little bigger. So I don't want it to get hooked on something. Or chewed on by another dog, etc. So it's there, just as a little less tempting where it's at. But I also like an air tag or a thigh collar or something that you can use as a tracking device. Not to say a sad story, but we might as well because it happened to last night. Abby was recently fostering a dog, and she was adopted several weeks ago. And unfortunately, a family member of the new adopted family was watching Millie, and she got loose while chasing a squirrel, and she's not been found, but she doesn't have a tracking device on. They called in a tracking company. I'm about to head over there after videos and stuff to help look for Millie, but really, really scary situation. And it just it can happen to anyone. At the end of the day, we are all human. Put as many safety measures as you can in place, but I cannot stress it enough. Please put some kind of tracking device on her. There is no worse feeling than a dog getting loose on accident. Maybe a kid's friend came over who's not used to having a dog, so they didn't shut the door, or the maintenance person didn't, or the landscaper didn't fully shut the gate, or whatever. Just freak accidents happen all the time. So as much as we want to be careful, we just want to have backups for worst case scenarios in place, which is why we use the air tags, why we use those the collars with the QR code that will scan and send me the coordinates, etc. But I highly suggest doing that. You just never want to be in that situation. So kind of unrelated to recall, but related still, because if she ever gets loose, we want to have those safety measures in place. Now, let's say she does get loose, the leash slips out of your hand. What do? Do not chase her. That is so, so, so important. I cannot stress that enough either, is do not chase your dog. It will make them run. They think you are playing. Trust me, they're not trying to run away. She loves you guys. She would never. But she will think you're playing. And now this is so fun. We're out for a big adventure in the neighborhood. And so she's just going to run and she's going to be excited. Or if someone chases, even if you find a dog that you don't know, do not chase it. You're way more likely for it to get spooked. Now they're not paying attention to traffic noises, and now they're more likely to run into the street. So do not chase any dog, but including your own. So instead, what you'll do is try to stay as calm as possible. I know that sounds near impossible, but try your very, very best to stay calm. And what you'll do is you'll just say here or touch like you normally would. and try to stay really chill, like you don't even care, like you're gonna go back inside, touch here. And if she doesn't do it, that's when you can get her attention, say treat, say whatever, and then you are going to either run in the opposite direction, so she wants to chase you. You can sit or lay down, so her interest is piqued and she's more likely to come back, etc. But I just want to stress that chasing a dog is never a good idea. So just all of my safety information right there for you. I know it's a lot and I'm kind of babbling on. So if you have questions about anything, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. I'm more than happy to send you links for things. There was recently, I just saw a tracking like little thing that goes on the collar that lights up. Like you have the ability, I think through an app, to make it light up. And I was just thinking, like, how cool would that be in those worst case scenarios, in that nightmare, to be able to light it up, especially at night. And again, our goal in training is to set a foundation so she doesn't get in that situation. But like I said, we're all human, so just get as many safety things in place that you can use. So we're here to help you in any way we can, but please practice Recall and keep us updated on how she's doing with it at home.